Karen's scream echoed through the house, a banshee wail that made the walls tremble and my coffee cup rattle on the table. "Why do my kids hate me?" she sobbed, mascara streaking her face like war paint, as if the answer wasn't staring her down in the mirror every damn day. I sat across from her in her cramped, chaotic living room, the air thick with the scent of burnt toast and regret. Karen, my older sister by 3 years, was a walking soap opera. 6 kids, 6 different fathers, 3 failed marriages, and a talent for turning every family gathering into a battlefield. At 38, she still carried the reckless energy of a teenager, chasing love like it was a limited-time offer at a discount store. Her latest meltdown was no surprise, but this time the stakes felt higher. Her kids, ranging from 17-year-old Mia to 3-year-old Leo, were starting to push back, and not in the usual teenage rebellion way. They were done. Done with her drama, her excuses, her revolving door of men. And here she was, crying to me, her younger sister Sarah, expecting me to stitch her life back together like I always did. It wasn't always like this. Growing up, Karen was the golden child, charismatic, bold, the kind of person who could charm a room full of strangers. I was the quiet one, the bookworm who stayed out of trouble and cleaned up her messes. When she got pregnant at 19 with Mia, our parents were disappointed but supportive. They figured she'd settle down with Mia's dad, a sweet guy named Jake who worked construction. But Karen didn't want boring. She dumped Jake before Mia's first birthday, claiming he didn't get her. That was the first crack in the foundation, the first sign of the chaos to come. By the time she was 25, Karen had 3 kids: Mia, Ethan, and Lily, each with a different father. Jake, then Marcus, then some guy named Trevor who vanished after a one-night stand. She married Marcus, Ethan's dad, in a whirlwind courthouse ceremony. But that crashed and burned in under a year. He was too controlling, she'd said, conveniently ignoring how she'd maxed out his credit cards on impulse buys. Her second marriage, to a slick car salesman named Derek, lasted 2 years and gave her twins, Ava and Noah. Derek was husband number 2 and baby daddy number 4. By the time Leo came along, courtesy of a bartender named Chris who didn't stick around for the birth, Karen was on marriage number 3 to a guy named Paul, a wannabe musician with a temper as volatile as hers. Paul was out the door now too, leaving Karen to juggle 6 kids and a mountain of bad decisions. I tried to stay neutral, to be the supportive sister. But it was hard when Karen's life was a tornado that sucked everyone in. Her kids were the real victims, caught in the crossfire of her choices. Mia, the oldest, was practically raising her siblings, her teenage years stolen by diaper changes and school drop-offs. Ethan, 14, was angry all the time, his fists clenched like he was ready to fight the world. Lily, 12, was quiet, too quiet, her eyes always glued to her phone, retreating into a digital escape. The twins, Ava and Noah, were 8 and already experts at dodging Karen's mood swings. And little Leo, poor Leo, was a whirlwind of energy, neglected half the time because Karen was too busy arguing with whichever ex was late on child support. That night, as Karen sobbed on her sagging couch, the kids were scattered around the house, avoiding her. Mia was in the kitchen, microwaving macaroni for the younger ones. Ethan was blasting music through his headphones, the bass vibrating the walls. Lily was curled up in a corner, scrolling on her phone. The twins were fighting over a broken toy, and Leo was tugging at my sleeve, begging for a story. I looked at Karen, her face buried in her hands, and felt a mix of pity and frustration. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice steady, "maybe it's time to look at the bigger picture here." She snapped her head up, eyes blazing. "What's that supposed to mean, Sarah? You think this is my fault?" Her voice was a knife, sharp and accusing. "I've done everything for these kids. I've sacrificed my whole life." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that her sacrifices included dragging her kids through her endless romantic misadventures. Instead, I said, "They're hurting, Karen. They need stability, not this." I gestured at the chaos around us, the dirty dishes, the unpaid bills stacked on the counter, the hole in the wall from Paul's last outburst. She scoffed, tossing her hair back. Stability? You sound like Mom. You think I don't want that? You think I planned this? No, I said. But you keep making choices that lead here. The kids see it. They feel it. Her face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she might actually listen. But then Mia walked in, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. Mom, Ethan's locked himself in his room again. He says he's not coming out until you stop yelling. Karen's tears vanished, replaced by fury. That little brat. I'm his mother. He doesn't get to talk to me like that. She stormed toward Ethan's room, banging on the door. Open this door right now, Ethan, or I swear. Karen, stop. I grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Yelling isn't going to fix this. She yanked her arm away, glaring at me. Don't tell me how to raise my kids, Sarah. You don't have any, so what do you know? That stung, but I swallowed the hurt. I know they're not okay, I said quietly. And I know you're not either. The room fell silent, except for the distant hum of Ethan's music and Leo's soft whimpers. Mia stood frozen, her eyes darting between us. Lily peeked out from her corner, her face pale. The twins stopped fighting, sensing the tension. For a moment it felt like the whole house was holding its breath, waiting for the next explosion. That's when it happened, the moment that changed everything. Ethan's door flew open and he stormed out, his face red with rage. You want to know why we don't respect you, Mom? He shouted, his voice cracking. Because you don't respect us. You don't respect yourself. You keep bringing these losers into our lives, and then you cry when they leave. We're sick of it. Karen froze, her mouth open, no words coming out. Mia stepped forward, her voice quieter but just as sharp. He's right, Mom. We're tired of cleaning up your messes. We're not your maids or your therapists. We're your kids. The air was electric, charged with years of unspoken truths. Karen's face twisted, anger, shame, denial, all fighting for control. You ungrateful little, she started, but I cut her off. Enough, Karen, I said, my voice firm. Listen to them. Really listen. She didn't. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The kids stood there, stunned, as the echo of her exit faded. Mia looked at me, her eyes wet but defiant. She'll never change, will she? I didn't have an answer. All I could do was hug her and hope that somehow, someway, Karen would find a way to break the cycle. But deep down I knew the truth. Karen's chaos wasn't just hurting her, it was breaking her kids, piece by piece. The weeks that followed were a slow burn of tension. Karen came back the next day, acting like nothing had happened, but the rift with her kids only grew. Ethan started skipping school, hanging out with a rough crowd. Mia took on even more responsibility, her grades slipping as she tried to keep the family afloat. Lily withdrew further, barely speaking. The twins started acting out, mimicking Karen's temper. And Leo, sweet Leo, clung to anyone who showed him attention, desperate for love. I tried to help where I could, bringing groceries, helping with homework, listening when the kids needed to vent. But Karen was a black hole, pulling everyone into her orbit. She started dating again, some guy named Tony who showed up with a flashy car and a fake smile. The kids hated him on sight. Mia told me he gave her the creeps, and Ethan threatened to run away if Tony moved in. I confronted Karen one evening after Tony left. You can't keep doing this, I said. The kids need you to be their mom, not some lovesick teenager. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You think I don't know that, Sarah? I'm trying. But I deserve to be happy too. Happy? I snapped, my patience finally breaking. What about their happiness? You're their mother. Your choices are tearing them apart. She stared at me, her eyes cold. If you're so perfect, why don't you take them? Since you know so much about parenting. It was a low blow, but I didn't take the bait. I'm not their mom, Karen. You are. Start acting like it. She didn't speak to me for days after that. The kids, though, kept reaching out, especially Mia. She started confiding in me about her fears that she'd end up like Karen, that her siblings would be lost to the same chaos. I promised her I'd be there no matter what, but I felt helpless. Karen was a storm, and I didn't know how to protect her kids from the wreckage. Then came the night of the big fight. Tony had been around more, practically living at the house. The kids were on edge, especially Ethan, who'd caught Tony yelling at Lily for spilling juice. That evening, Karen announced that Tony was moving in permanently. The kids erupted. Ethan threw a glass against the wall, shattering it. Mia screamed at Karen, calling her selfish. Even Lily, usually silent, joined in, her voice shaking as she told Karen she was embarrassed to call her mom. Karen fought back, yelling about how ungrateful they were, how she'd given up everything for them. But the kids weren't backing down. Mia grabbed her siblings and walked out, heading to my place. I let them in, my heart breaking as they collapsed on my couch, exhausted and defeated. When Karen showed up an hour later, she was a mess, hair wild, eyes red, voice hoarse. "You turned them against me," she accused, pointing a trembling finger at me. "No, Karen," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "You did that all on your own." She broke down then, sobbing on my doorstep. But this time I didn't let her in. Not because I didn't love her, I did, fiercely, but because I couldn't keep enabling her. The kids needed me more. The standoff on my doorstep felt like the breaking point. The moment where years of Karen's chaos collided with reality. Her sobs echoed in the quiet night. But the kids, huddled inside my small apartment, were resolute. Mia, her face set like stone, whispered, "We're not going back, Aunt Sarah. Not this time." Ethan's fists were clenched, his eyes burning with a rage that scared me. Lily sat silently, clutching her phone like a lifeline, while the twins, Ava and Noah, curled up together on my couch, their small bodies trembling. Leo, barely 3, was asleep in my lap, his tiny hand gripping my shirt. I looked at Karen, my sister, my blood, and saw a stranger drowning in her own choices. "Karen," I said, my voice low but firm, "you need to go home. We'll talk tomorrow, but right now the kids need space." Her eyes widened, disbelief twisting her tear-streaked face. "You're kicking me out? My own sister." Her voice cracked, but there was an edge to it, a familiar defiance. "You think you can just take my kids?" "I'm not taking them," I said, my heart heavy. "They chose to come here. They're scared, Karen. They're hurt. You need to figure out why." She opened her mouth to argue, but something in my expression stopped her. Maybe it was the exhaustion in my eyes, or the way the kids' silence screamed louder than her protests. She turned and stumbled down the steps, her car peeling out into the night. I closed the door, my chest tight, and turned to the kids. "You're safe here," I promised. "Get some sleep. We'll figure this out." But figuring it out wasn't simple. Over the next few days, Karen blew up my phone with texts, some pleading, some accusing, all desperate. She swore she'd change, that Tony was different, that she'd make things right. But the kids weren't buying it. Mia, the de facto leader, was adamant. "She always says she'll change," she told me, her voice bitter. Then another guy shows up, and it's the same crap all over again. Ethan was more direct. "I hate her. I hate all of them." His words cut deep, not just because of their venom, but because I saw the pain behind them. I couldn't keep the kids indefinitely. My one-bedroom apartment was barely big enough for me, let alone 6 children. But I also couldn't send them back to a house where Tony's temper and Karen's denial ruled. I called a family meeting, just me and the kids, and listened as they poured out years of hurt. Mia talked about missing school to care for her siblings, about how Karen's boyfriends treated her like a servant. Ethan admitted he'd started stealing from corner stores, not because he needed anything, but because he wanted to feel in control. Lily, barely audible, confessed she felt invisible, like Karen only noticed her when she needed someone to yell at. The twins spoke in halting sentences about nightmares, about Tony shouting, about feeling like they didn't belong anywhere. Leo, too young to articulate his pain, just clung to Mia, his eyes wide and searching. I knew I had to act. I contacted a social worker I knew from my job at the community center, a kind woman named Rachel who specialized in family crises. She met with the kids, listened to their stories, and agreed that Karen's home wasn't safe not yet. She suggested temporary custody arrangements, with me as the guardian, while Karen got help. It wasn't an easy decision. Taking custody meant upending my life, but looking at those kids, I knew I couldn't abandon them. When I told Karen, she exploded. "You're stealing my children," she screamed over the phone. "You're turning them against me. I'm protecting them." I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. "You've had years to get it together, Karen. Years. They can't wait anymore." She hung up, and for a week I didn't hear from her. The kids settled into a fragile routine at my place. Mia helped with meals, Ethan grudgingly did chores, and Lily started opening up, even smiling sometimes. The twins were enrolled in a local school, and Leo started daycare. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable. For the first time, I saw glimmers of hope in their eyes. Then Karen showed up again, unannounced, with Tony in tow. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the kids were playing in my tiny backyard. I heard the doorbell and opened it to find Karen, her face pale but defiant, and Tony looming behind her, his arms crossed. "We're here to take the kids home," Karen said, her voice clipped. The kids heard her and came inside, their faces hardening. Mia stepped forward, her voice steady. "We're not going anywhere with him," she said, glaring at Tony. Tony's jaw tightened. "You don't get to talk to me like that, kid," he snapped, taking a step forward. Ethan moved in front of Mia, his fists up, ready to fight. "Enough," I shouted, stepping between them. "Tony, you need to leave. Now." He laughed, a mean, mocking sound. "Or what? You gonna call the cops on me, Sarah?" Before I could answer, Rachel Aravech'd been checking in regularly. She took one look at the scene and pulled out her phone. "Yes, I think we will," she said calmly, dialing. Tony's bravado faltered, and he grabbed Karen's arm, pulling her toward the door. "Karen, wait," I said, my voice softer now. "You can still fix this. But not with him. Not like this." She looked at me, her eyes wet, but she didn't say a word. She followed Tony out, and I heard his car screech away. Rachel stayed, calming the kids and promising to expedite the custody paperwork. That night, as I tucked Leo into bed, he whispered, "Is Mommy coming back?" I kissed his forehead, my heart breaking. "She loves you, buddy. She just needs to figure some things out." The custody hearing came a month later. Karen showed up alone, her face drawn, her usual bravado gone. The judge, a stern but fair woman, listened as Rachel presented the kids' stories, backed by school reports and my own testimony. Karen's lawyer argued that she was a loving mother, overwhelmed but trying her best. Karen herself took the stand, her voice trembling as she promised to change, to go to therapy, to end things with Tony. But the kids' voices, submitted through written statements, were damning. Mia wrote about years of neglect, Ethan about his anger, Lily about her fear. Even the twins, in their childlike scrawl, begged to stay with me. The judge granted me temporary custody for 6 months, with Karen allowed supervised visits. She was ordered to attend parenting classes and therapy, and to prove she could provide a stable home. Karen didn't cry in court, she just sat there, staring at the floor, as if the weight of her choices had finally crushed her. The months that followed were hard but hopeful. The kids thrived in my care, their wounds slowly healing. Mia started talking about college, something she'd never dared dream of before. Ethan joined a boxing program at the community center, channeling his anger into something productive. Lily began writing poetry, her words raw and beautiful. The twins laughed more, their nightmares fading. Leo started calling me Auntie Mama, a bittersweet reminder of the role I'd taken on. Karen's visits were inconsistent at first. She'd show up, sometimes tearful, sometimes defensive, but always alone. Tony was out of the picture, at least for now. Slowly, she started to engage with the kids, asking about their lives instead of talking about her own. Therapy seemed to be helping, though she still had a long way to go. One day, she pulled me aside and said, "I'm sorry, Sarah, for everything. I didn't realize how bad it was." I wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing. "Show them," I said. "Not with words. With actions." 6 months later, the court reviewed the case. Karen had made progress, steady job, therapy, no new boyfriends, but the kids weren't ready to go back. Mia, now 18, spoke for them all. "We love Mom, but we need more time. We need to know it's real." The judge extended my custody for another year, with increased visitation for Karen. It wasn't a victory for anyone, but it was justice for the kids, who deserved a chance to heal, and for Karen, who had to face the consequences of her choices. Karen's reckoning wasn't a single moment but a slow, painful unraveling. She'd lost her kids' respect, not because they didn't love her, but because she hadn't loved herself enough to be the mother they needed. The kids, though, were finding their way, proving that even in the wreckage of a broken home, resilience could bloom. As I watched them grow, I thought about the cost of Karen's chaos, not just to her, but to everyone around her. Her story wasn't over, and neither was theirs. There was hope, but it came with a price: accountability, time, and the courage to change. What do you think? Was the court's decision fair? Should Karen get another chance, or have her kids suffered enough? Share your thoughts. Where does the line between forgiveness and accountability lie?